Well, that's our focus this morning, assessing the fight against corruption. We're joined by Mr. John Oloyede, who is a legal practitioner. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Good morning.
Well, how this fight is going to, we do know the president did, in his campaign rhetoric, talked about how he was going to go ahead and face or fight corruption headlong. But ever since, we've seen he's gone to the States, he seemed to be rallying support across length and breadth of the world. And so far, it's got to be back home. He's back home, and some of the activities, we see these comments now. From what you've seen, what would your assessment be of it?
Well, one of the major complaints of Nigerians against the president is that nobody actually knows the policy thrust of this government. That so far, maybe because of a lot of things that have been delayed, nobody really knows the economic policy, the social policy, whatever. But my own view is that fighting corruption can be a policy of government. And the man, that has always been his mantra, that when I come in, I'm going to fight corruption. Fighting corruption, blocking leakages through which our commonwealth is being stolen, can actually be an economic policy. But, looking at it from the perspective of PDP, it's like, oh, if you want to block leakages, if you want to catch corrupt people, politicians, goats that have eaten our yams, why should he be selective? That is what they are saying. The man has to start from somewhere. While agreeing that, yes, it's out of place that it seems the agencies, particularly the EFCC, seems to be chasing down those that are in the opposition party. I think it's not a new thing in the polity.
You think it's a pattern?
There's always a pattern to it. In the Obasanjo era, it started, and the people in the opposition, people who saw themselves as the opposition, they cried that, oh, this is selective. EFCC is just an organ being used by government to chase down the opposition, to quieten them, to silence the noisemakers. Now, the same thing continued when it was Jonathan administration. Some of the people in opposition still felt, look, you are just using this to hound us. And now it is continuing. It is not a new trend in the polity. I don't want to go as far as joining those who say the president is being selective. I don't know. Those of us who are not close to him, there are times that even the man at the helm of affairs, the errands that he has not sent people close to him, they want to deliver on such errands. So whether it is a presidential thing or it is just the usual trend where those who are surrounding the president, they want to show him that, oh, we are doing an impressive work, especially now that you hear that the headship of EFCC, is about to be changed, and somebody wants to see whether, look, by putting in some hard work here in quotes.
But what do we make of the response of the presidential spokesman? Because it does appear as though the presidency don't see things that way. He says, look, you're saying the same thing over and over again. Is there anyone who has been invited by the commission who has no questions to answer?
I think Mr. Adesina just did his own job. Ordinarily, it's not something that it's not a kite that should fly at such an altitude. What the PDP said, I don't think is worthy of a presidential remark. What I thought should have happened is for the EFCC, they have a spokesperson to respond and say, look, we are doing our job. We don't care if you, like they always say, if you have people that, that have been petitioned against by people, and you feel that we are foot dragging, bring it forth. Let the petitioners come forward. EFCC, they always say that some people drop petitions, they don't follow it through. They don't come back to substantiate their claims. It may just be that the people who wrote petitions against the PDP personnel, maybe they followed up. And the EFCC, they've seized the gauntlet. I am not saying that's necessarily true, but that may just be because that's usually the EFCC refrain, that sometimes people dump petitions on them. They mention some outlandish figures, very fearsome figures, and then they cannot substantiate it. No documents to back up all these claims. It may just be that.
But again, if you look at it, it won't be entirely out of place for Mr. Adesina to respond, knowing full well that the argument from the PDP was directly to his office. So we understand that if the EFCC had been accused of, doing that, that is when their spokesperson would have come forward with his own side of the story. But if you look at it now, don't you think that this talk about corruption has been taken out of context? Because we keep talking about fight against corruption, and every time we see the agencies making a move, or even the government, is always in the media.
Yes, thank you for that question. That's my perception exactly. You see, the government of the day and previous governments, they keep fighting corruption on the pages of newspapers, in the media. Now, for instance, the former governor of Akwa Ibom State is is either called invitation or detention. We don't know what it is, but those on this side of the device, oh, he's been detained, and they'll be clapping and screaming that, oh, thank God, anti-corruption war is on. The others, then later in the evening, he's released, and then they will issue a press release that says, look, all those of you who are my enemies, blah blah blah, and they might even go to church for Thanksgiving afterwards. Now, my problem is this: why is it that they build up this issue of invitations, arrests, and detention, and then the bubble will just burst? Nothing comes afterwards. For instance, you want to catch a thief. Somebody has been alleged to have stolen billions in dollars, and you have invited him. And then you start saying, okay, you bought in the name of so-so company, you bought in the name of your wife, in the name of your son. In the interim, the names that are being mentioned in the press, those people, they don't just sit down. You are actually jeopardizing your own investigations, because these people will then get up quickly and do what they can do to cover up their tracks. Now, Nigeria is not, if it's in other climes, UK, US, you can't cover your tracks. In law, we have something called tracing in equity. You can trace stolen wealth, you can trace diverted property.
Is it that we can't trace them here, or we seem to, okay, well, maybe looking at somebody's body?
No, we can also trace. It's so, the corrupt elements in our polity, they have gotten so careless. How can somebody just divert 1 billion naira for Christ's sake? And they say it just disappears, it vanishes. We can trace it, but you see, the quality of people who are going to do the tracing is suspect. They are the people questioning. That is why, up till this moment, in terms of the success rate of EFCC in prosecuting the big thieves amongst us, you will see that, ask yourself, how many cases that have been blown up in the media at the investigatory stages, how many of such cases have actually ended in success for EFCC? How many of such cases have they won? The best they have done so far is to do plea bargain, which is ridiculously ridiculous.